Even the most modest or smallest team creating a video game, when that comes to fruition, it is such a mind-bogglingly complex thing to execute, it kind of feels like a miracle if it meets commercial and or critical success. But it goes without saying that many games unfortunately leave alarm bells ringing when they're early on in their development, enough so that they kind of feel like they're doomed long before they're actually due to release. That's absolutely true of these 10 upcoming video games, each of which have thrown up some serious red flags despite the undeniable hype surrounding their release. It'd be so good to be wrong on these ones, but it does feel like these games are going to struggle out the gate. Also, one of them got full-on cancelled the day after the writer of this list, Jack Pooley, published it, so there we go. 1 down, 9 to go. Fingers crossed it goes better for the other ones. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 upcoming video games that are already doomed. Number 10, The Wolf Among Us 2. The Wolf Among Us 2 is the sequel to Telltale Games' acclaimed episodic adventure game based on Bill Willingham's Fables comic book series. It seems to be a textbook case of a video game follow-up that's just spent way too long in the oven, and we really mean too long. The original Wolf Among Us released its 5 episodes in 2013 and 2014, and the sequel was initially announced at San Diego Comic-Con in 2017 with an intended 2018 release. However, of course, if you remember, Telltale in its original form was shuttered in 2018, largely due to financial issues, so that threw a wrench in the works in a very big way. So much so that at the time, The Wolf Among Us 2 was cancelled. It was ultimately resurrected though, when Telltale was revived in 2019, but word on the game has been frustratingly scant over the last 6 years. Particularly frustrating because this was a great game. It might be because the new Telltale team reconceived the game from scratch, using none of the ideas in the original pre-closure version of the game. All the same, as you can imagine, the production has been beset by all kinds of issues, and in September of 2023, more of Telltale's workforce was laid off. Though Telltale confirmed that The Wolf Among Us 2 isn't cancelled last October, between Telltale's clear business problems and the ludicrous amount of time that's passed since the first game, it's easy to imagine that if it even does come out, it may be largely ignored by the gaming masses. Number 9, Judas. Judas is a new shooter from BioShock creator Ken Levine, and while that's all very exciting in and of itself, this thing's been in development since 2014. In fact, it's been in the works long enough that reports about it being in development hell came out almost a full year before the game itself was unveiled in 2022. Former employees of Levine's Ghost Story Games have criticized his managerial style, resulting in large amounts of work being scrapped and the project being rebooted numerous times over the years. Some also felt that Levine's AAA ambitions just didn't line up with what the small team could practically achieve. And we're talking about members of his team that he handpicked specifically to be part of this all-star crew, and 11 of those have since quit. Though we at least have a title now, and we've seen some solid gameplay footage, none of what we've heard from behind the scenes paints a persuasive picture that Judas will actually transpire into a genuinely great game. Don't be shocked if this thing limps on in development hell for a few more years and surpasses Duke Nukem Forever's record-breaking 14-year production period, only to end up with a mixed bag of reviews per Levine's wishy-washy leadership. Number 8, Star Wars Eclipse. Star Wars Eclipse was announced in December of 2021 at the Game Awards, enticingly revealed to be a cinematic Star Wars-themed adventure game from Quantic Dream, the studio behind interactive dramas like Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human. But it's now been more than 3.5 years since Eclipse was announced, and we haven't seen a single shred of gameplay. In 2022, reports suggested that Quantic Dream had struggled to staff up for the project due to allegations of the company having a toxic, harassment-filled workplace culture, which, would probably make it tricky to hire. This then led insiders to believe that the game wouldn't release until 2027 or even 2028, at which point it could be a next-gen title. Furthermore, the game's lead writer Adam Williams departed Quantic Dream last August, and it goes without saying that unleashing a creative as eccentric as Quantic Dream founder David Cage on the Star Wars IP does feel like something of a risk. A cinematic Star Wars story with Quantic Dream's knack for storytelling and technical finesse should be an absolute gem, but all of this silence is certainly not worrying. And on top of that, Star Wars Outlaws proved just last year that the IP is far from commercially bulletproof. Number 7, Ark II. The follow-up to 2017's hit survival game Ark Survival Evolved was first announced at the Game Awards in 2020, with a trailer revealing it's going to star Vin Diesel and Moana's Auli'i Cravalho. Ark II was originally supposed to release in 2023, but Studio Wildcard, who makes the game and is a very funny name for the studio given the circumstances, ultimately said that what was instead going to happen is the game was going to come to early access in late 2024. But Ark II missed that date without any word from the studio, and at present, its release date on Steam is simply listed as to be announced. The lack of clear communication has left the fanbase understandably frustrated. The Ark subreddit is jam-packed with posts from fans speculating on whether the game's actually going to come out at all. Given it's been the better part of 5 years without us seeing or hearing anything from the game, it's sort of understandable that many people reckon it's been quietly cancelled. Or, at the absolute best, it will probably at this stage be half-heartedly sloughed out a few years from now, long after a lot of Ark fans will have stopped caring. Number 6, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Action RPG sequel Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 was officially revealed in March 2019, with original developer Hardsuit Labs planning to launch the game sometime in 2020. It's now, of course, the middle of 2025, and this thing is absolutely not on shelves. Not only that, it's been delayed a grand total of 6 times, the most recent being it's gonna come out early this year to it's gonna come out in October. Okay. These delays are largely attributed to the dismissal of Hardsuit Labs in 2021, after which they were replaced by the Chinese Room, who do Still Wakes the Deep and did Amnesia Machine for Pigs. They then decided to rebuild the vast majority of the game. Though the Chinese Room has stated that formal development is complete and the game is now in the polishing stages, it's also fair to say that the scale and ambition of the project is far from the short, confined titles they've made before, so it wouldn't be remotely surprising if they've bitten off a little more than they can chew. Plus, with reports that the game is planning to tone down some of those immersive sim elements that everybody loved in the first game, it might be that even if this one does come out, it's kind of going to be alienating some of its hardcore fanbase. Number 5, Everwild. Everwild is the latest action-adventure game from Rare and was first publicly announced in 2019, after it had already been in some stage of development for 5 years. Well, it was Rare's latest action-adventure that was first announced in 2019, having been in development for 5 years, but now it's been cancelled amid Microsoft's massive layoffs. So this one is more in the definitely doomed category than the probably doomed category, but let me run you through its slow death anyway. In 2021, insider Jeff Grubb claimed that the game was a, quote, real mess and had been rebooted after the departure of original creative director Simon Woodruff. As of 2023, VGC's Andy Robinson revealed that Everwild had been changed from a survival game with God elements into more of a simulation akin to Viva Pinata. Though Robinson was optimistic about what he knew of the project and Microsoft claimed to be happy with the game internally, Xbox's Phil Spencer commented only vaguely that the game was making progress. It is a massive shame for everybody involved that the 11 years spent on this game have ended so unceremoniously, but a lot of things that Microsoft have done in the last year and a half have been a massive shame. So anyway, let me tell you about some games that are not definitely doomed. Just maybe definitely. Number 4, Contraband. Contraband is a new co-op heist game set in the 1970s, and it's being made by Avalanche Studios, the team behind Just Cause, Mad Max, and Rage 2. A glossy CGI reveal trailer first announced the game at E3 of 2021, and more than 4 years later, we've heard nothing substantial about it whatsoever. Most concerningly, we haven't got a follow-up trailer from Avalanche, we haven't seen any gameplay, and we haven't even got any screenshots to look at. Given the popularity of co-op heist games, there's clear interest in this one, but the lack of forward momentum makes it easy to believe that the project is probably stuck in development hell and struggling to achieve its full potential. Last summer, The Verge's Tom Warren claimed that the game was a ways off, and given it didn't show at this year's Summer Games Fest, it's safe to say we won't be seeing it until at least 2026. Given that the live service space is, and this is putting it lightly, wildly oversaturated and absolutely littered with the corpses of failed big budget efforts, it won't be surprising if this one kind of struggles to maintain a player base when it comes out, if it does come out at all. Number 3, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake. Even accepting that AAA development times seem to be getting longer with each passing year, it's tough not to question why it's taken Ubisoft so long to develop a remake of an 8-hour game. The remake of the legendary 2003 action-adventure Prince of Persia: Sands of Time was first announced at Ubisoft Forward in 2020 and intended to be released the next year in 2021. However, the reveal trailer was massively criticized by fans, largely for its lackluster visuals, many feeling that this was effectively a rush job remaster being cynically branded as a full-fat remake. This caused Ubisoft to initially delay the game to March of 2021 before postponing it indefinitely. By 2022, Indian studios Ubisoft Mumbai and Ubisoft Pune were removed from the project and replaced by Ubisoft Montreal, who reportedly restarted development from scratch. The last substantial update came in June of 2024, and it was in a teaser trailer where we got to see that there is a planned 2026 release date. Though, of course, said teaser trailer didn't really show us what the new version of the remake is gonna look like. This is just a stupendous amount of time and presumably money to spend on a Sands of Time remake, and even if it's well received upon launch, given the dubious popularity of the Prince of Persia franchise at the moment, especially with the brilliant Lost Crown flopping last year, it seems unlikely to be a commercial success. Number 2, Marathon. Marathon is a game that just can't seem to catch a break, and given everything it's been through, it seems like Bungie's multiplayer extraction shooter doesn't really have a path to success. As exciting as a new Bungie-developed shooter might be, many immediately took umbrage with the decision to make it a premium paid title, a risky proposition given the lack of a single-player campaign and the sheer number of free-to-play titles competing in that same genre space. Beyond that, player reception to the Marathon alpha test has been really mixed. Back in May, the game replaced its creative director, and the very same month, it was discovered that the game contains stolen art. Marathon was originally set to launch on September 23rd this year, but in mid-June the decision was made to delay it indefinitely, and a new release date is supposed to come out later this year. Marathon is now in an incredibly tricky spot, because it's clear from the alpha test it needs a ton of work to realize its full potential. And honestly, are Bungie going to want to invest the massive amount of time needed? Considering the tidal wave of PR going against the game and the fact that Grand Theft Auto 6 is basically going to dominate the AAA gaming sphere for the second half of 2026, it's difficult to picture an outcome where Marathon isn't sent out to a speedy demise, much like last year's Concord. Number 1, Little Devil Inside. And finally, we have Little Devil Inside, the extremely neat-looking action-adventure RPG from Neostream Interactive, which was initially announced via a Kickstarter campaign all the way back in April of 2015. Neostream initially planned to launch the game in 2016, and of course, it's now been almost a full decade, and we have no idea when we might be playing this thing. The developer has missed several planned release dates and gone radio silent for troublingly long periods, though it did seem like production might be getting somewhere when they confirmed a partnership with Sony to release exclusively for PS4 and PS5. But in early 2024, the developer revealed that their team had been downsized and they were currently in talks with new publishers, seemingly suggesting their deal with Sony had lapsed, presumably due to the lack of forward momentum on the project. Many have pointed to this game as a really good example of scope creep, getting to the point where they wanted to make it a larger scale survival game and just didn't have the team or resources to keep up with all their ideas. So much of what Neostream has shown looks absolutely fantastic, and we really want to believe, but it's hard to accept that this thing will ever actually be ready to ship. Plus, considering how long it's been in development, it's even harder to see a reality where it's economically viable for Neostream.